So, I'm going to be attempting to do as in-depth as a video as I can, putting a Powertrax Lock-Right unit in my Dana 70 carrier for my dually. As you can see, it's about as open diff as you could possibly get. So, we're going to fix that. So the first step is an obvious one, and I apologize for the mess because I don't have a good place to put this camera while I'm doing this. But all of these guys have to be undone, and I think they're on there pretty taut, but impact to go burr, so we don't really care about that. And if you're wondering, this is the Milwaukee 2962-20 half-inch mid torque, as they call it, but I think she's pretty minty. Ta-da! And so the next step is to hop on YouTube and find out exactly how this comes apart, because I don't want to just start beating it with a hammer and find out that that's not how it's supposed to come apart. So you take the persuasion stick and you just kind of ting. So the next step here is to get this roll pin out, which I have most of the way out, as you can see, but you have to drive it from the ring gear side, which is right here is the hole, and I think I used a 3/16 punch, and I got mine down to where it doesn't reach anymore, so I need to find some longer punches to get it the rest of the way out. Man, I really do apologize for the lighting in here. It is kind of god-awful, but I went and specifically got long punches from Harbor Freight for them to only be about an inch longer, but that inch might make the difference. But $10 for a punch that's an inch longer does make the difference. So there you go. The long punches from Harbor Freight are just barely long enough. So the rope ends out. So next step is to take your big cross pin, as they call it, something along those lines. But it's this massive, flip this over, this massive bar in there that goes side to side. So get that out, and I'll be right back. As soon as that roll pin comes out, that thing already starts coming out, so I got the fattest punch that I had and just lightly tapped it, and it slid right through. I mean, tapping it as I'm pulling it through, but because with the oil on there, you're not gonna have a fun time trying to pull it out just with your hands alone. So that is now out, and everything in there, as soon as you start turning that carrier, those gears are gonna fall right out. So before I do that, because I think we're to the last steps of this here, or at least the last steps of disassembly, next is actually assembling the Lock-Right and getting it in here, I think. So I am going to head on over to the YouTube again to confirm that that is in fact our next step and go from there. So I've got the locker here. Comes with your sticker, your manual there, a new center pin. So this, obviously we're not going to need the old one. We've got our springs and what would you call those? Little pins. And then the two halves of the locker. Now, according to what I'm seeing on YouTube, I'm probably going to have to go get another tool that I don't have, which is a basically a measuring caliper to to make sure that you're within spec of how far apart your the sides of the locker actually are. And so with that, these guys in here on either side actually come out. We are not going to be reusing those. That is what the locker replaces. So good to know. But I am probably gonna have to go get that tool before I can make it much farther. Alright, so I'm going to have to end up getting that tool here pretty quick, but I'm going to see how far we can make it without doing that. So a couple things I want to cover real quick before I forget to mention them. When everything comes apart, your bearings, everything like that, you want to make sure that everything goes in the same place it came out, right? So you want to be sure of that. So this guy is this way. The ring gear side is this side, the other, and so when these come out, I shouldn't need any of the spider gears in here. None of those should matter because this replaces all of them. And when this goes together, I want specifically this piece to show you guys. So when this interface is like this, you are going to have a smaller hole on one side, more open hole on the other, and they alternate, and they do this either side. The small hole you're going to want to grease and slide your pins in once this is in there. You don't want to do it now, but once this is in there, you're going to want to put the pins in there with some grease. And these larger window holes are where the springs go in. You start them in and compress them and get them in once it's in there. These pins, or these springs rather, right here, the small springs that will go inside the larger springs. Like I said, they go in the bigger window holes once this is in there. One other thing I completely forgot to mention, if you ever want to revert the changes, if you ever want to have the option to go back to whatever your setup is prior to the locker, if you want to have that for like backup purposes, whatever, if you plan on taking the locker out before, if you want to sell the rig, whatever, what have you, you want to know what orientation these go in, where they go in, what spacers, what shims, what everything. Like, you need to know exactly where everything was to put it back together properly. Me personally, I don't plan on selling this rig, and if I would, I don't have anything else that has a Dana 70, so I don't have a reason to want to take this back out. If I were to take this out and go to something else, if I were to take the Dana 70 out, I would probably sell the whole rear end and go with a 14 bolt or something. In which case, I might be more careful so that I can revert whatever changes. Otherwise, if I decided to go with a different locker in the future for some reason, I don't see that happening. But if for some odd reason, everything comes out and it's a whole different setup. Alright, so once you have everything out, which, as you can see, I do, everything pretty much just dropped right out for me. You pretty much take the whole one side of the unit, which, right here, you can see, this is essentially a big side here. This is how it comes packaged. So this is, as far as I know, this is not the way that you want this. Comes packaged like this, so I would assume that it's that way for a reason. I will confirm. Yeah, it definitely goes like that. I will confirm just to be sure, but as far as I know, at this point in time, grease that up and then set it in there. But as you can see in the manual, they give you a typical guy here, typical exploded view of the locker. So I'm going to read over this before I go over this, because it says like thrust washer, reuse old ones or acquire new ones, So some of these we're going to want to confirm 100%, and you have like the spacer diagram there. It doesn't say specifically which way it goes because there's no marking on there. Went ahead and put the thrust washer, as the manual refers to it as. I think it's more of a shim that go on either side of the big spider gear. One side's already in here. I threw some grease on it, and it's just some lithium grease. It's literally a cheap gun from Harbor Freight. Literally the grease that it comes with. It's not going to hurt anything. It just acts as, well, one, a lubricant, but two, it helps hold things in place as well. I'm going to have to throw this carrier on its side. And as we do that, then this guy, one side's in there, obviously. Next side, not this. That's the old, one of the old gears. This guy right here goes right back in the same spot as the old one. Like I said, I have those thrust washers, as they refer to them as, in there. And then what we need to do next is assemble everything as if we're all together. So we're going to want, I believe we want to put the pins in here prior to getting everything all finished up and assembled. So the smaller holes are the sides that the grease goes in with the pins. So take our pin, cover it in a little bit of grease. I've heard even if you can manage doing this without the grease, you still want to do it with the grease. So I would advise just doing it with the grease to be on the safe side. And I did confirm that the spacers here do face with the hole down. There's no information I found to back it up. I more or less just looked at how it interfaces with the thing, and it's just big enough to fit over the part of the locker there, whereas the other way it doesn't fit the way that it needs to. So grab another pin, some more grease, just a little bit on the end there. Don't need a lot, but like I said, I've heard that the grease also helps keep some noise down and just overall maintenance a lot better. So there's one side. Get the other side, and then I think what we're gonna do, or what we should do, is to, this is interesting. This is going to be a fun one to get in there. So grab some more grease, and I'm just going to think about how the hell I'm going to do this, because you've got essentially what is two ends attempting to go in at the same time. So you pretty much have to put it most of the way together and throw it in. I've decided this is the best angle for you guys to witness me battle it out here. So this whole thing is essentially ready to just plop down in here as best as we can make it. Tight friggin' fit. This is probably why you want to do the springs after, but I don't feel like fighting with them. But I don't have to. Okay. Now, teeth aligned, and they should pop into place somewhat. Grab some. Get my hands covered in oil before I start touching stuff around my room. Oh shit. Grab a couple of picks here. I think that small one will help. I'm going to try to rotate these accordingly. That was not what I wanted. It's the opposite of what I needed. Okay, that's close. There may or may not be a reason why you want to wait on the springs, but I'm stubborn and didn't do that, so. Okay, that side's in. At least aligned. Most of the way, not entirely. There, that side's in. little ting, it pushed the teeth into place. So now, just gonna make sure the other side is in, which I believe that it is, actually. Might have saved myself having to fight with those teeth. Or those springs, rather. Center pin is in place. I threw some grease on it to help hold it in place. So there's plenty of grease all over this thing. Where's my flashlight so I can get you guys better light? Stream light, micro stream, baby. It's an alligator clips zip tied to it. But this is the part that I believe I need to spec out, is just how wide this gap here is, because I reused everything the way that it said you're supposed to. So as far as I know, this right here needs to be a specific width apart, basically, and I need a feeler gauge to confirm that. And with such a thing, that's being the last thing that I need for this thing to be ready to go back together. I don't see another reason to really continue tonight. So I'll probably pick up tomorrow with the feeler gauge, just confirm that everything here is put back together 100%, and I'll make a video to confirm. And another useless mistake I made, not reading the specs here. It says it should be about 530 seconds, so feeler gauge is way too small to spec this out, which, you know, it figures going off a YouTube video of not the exact model. So 530 seconds being about 0.152, it says the tolerances are between 0.145 and 0.170. So I got the 0.026 plus the 1/8, which 0.125 of 1/8, plus 0.026 gets us 0.151, which is within spec and ever so slightly smaller than that 0.152. Even if I drop this down, which I will go down to, if I can find, even 0.023. We'll drop it down just a few, which is still within spec by a few. Stick that up there and that down there, and it has plenty of room to play. So we are going to call that well within spec. So, yeah. Aside from me being an idiot, this is how you do the 2710 in a Dana 70. So we're cool. But to be very, very specific here, I went off what Amazon was saying. Amazon said the 2710 and the 2711 would fit my 89 C3500 Chevy. Issue is, the 2711 is 32 spline axles, the 2710 is 35. I pulled the axles, confirmed 35 spline, Dana 70. But the one issue I had there is I don't understand all of the differences between the exact things of a Dana 70 HD and a Dana 80 and whatever. So just verify exactly what axle you have and the axle's spline count. Don't just go off of me saying the 2710 is for a Dana 70. One last thing, putting the roll pin back in, there's a little shelf you'll find. You probably can't see it, but you basically just pound it back in place till you hit that shelf. And from there, everything should be beautiful.